Right, good morning, welcome back. Now, in recent weeks, we've posted up a couple of videos talking about garage setup. Large pieces of equipment that you might buy to set your garage up to do your own maintenance, your own motorcycle servicing, and your own projects. Now, in the first one, I talked about the parts washer. Can you develop a need for it? If you have, can you justify the expense for it, and will you use it enough? And what are the expenses involved? Now, after that video, we got a whole raft of comments on setting up your shop with a blast booth. And that video was pretty much the same. What are the overall costs of setting it up? What are the related costs? Things like the compressor that you're going to need to run it. And both of those videos have raised an awful lot of interest. So we thank you for the feedback on that. It's interesting to hear what you've got to say on the subject and what your plans for your shop actually are. Now, both of them have also raised a third question. What about a bike lift? Now, in hindsight, I think maybe I should have done the video on the bike lift first, because we're far more likely, aren't we, to use a motorcycle lift as our first large piece of garage kit than we are a parts washer or a blast booth, don't you think? So here it is, motorcycle lift. Do you need one? Can you justify the expense of one in your garage, and will you make use of it to make the expense worthwhile? That's it. Now, with a motorcycle lift, one of the reasons people just turn off and they're not interested is because of the expense. Or should we say the perceived expense? Because yeah, quite rightly, a big old monster lift like this with the side plates, super heavyweight, electric operation, this is going to cost an awful lot of money. Perhaps over £2,000 if you get a top end one. But you don't have to spend that money on a motorcycle lift. You can buy a lift for your bike, a table style lift, for as little as £200 or £300. But not all lifts that lift a motorcycle have to be a full-size table that you can get a quad bike on. Some of them can be just a little lift that goes under the frame like this. That is still a motorcycle lift, and it will cost you less than £100. Remember I said in the parts washer video that you need to build the need for the item to justify it. I started out washing parts in a cat litter tray with a paintbrush, and before you know it, you've justified your parts washer because you do it more often. Well, it's the same with this. One of these little things was my first motorcycle lift, and if you think that a flat table's no good because you've got a sports bike or you haven't got a bike with a low enough frame rail, you do get little attachments for them that slot on like that. They can reach up to the frame, and you can jack up pretty much any bike with one of these and the relevant attachments that come with it. So one of these, which you can buy for less than £100, is a great way to start building the need for a full-size table one day. Now, after a fair while with my little table jack, I traded up to the first real motorcycle lift, the type with 4 wheels and 2 little arms that lift the whole bike off the floor. Now, one of those is a really useful little item because once the bike's on it, you can actually move it around, and it's perfect in a garage that's a little bit tight where you haven't got much space. And that served me really well for quite a few years, until eventually, about 8 years ago, I invested in my first proper heavy-duty table lift. Now, whilst this was a considerable investment at the time, and I did ponder it for a long time, it's justified because here I sit, nearly a decade later, countless motorcycles have been on this lift, and I honestly can't imagine my garage life without it now. So if that lift is everything I've ever needed, and it's still serving me well after all these years, why did I invest in this big wide one, and what was the justification for this? Well, first of all, to be clear, the black bit in the middle is actually the table lift. This is the lift itself. That's a normal width, the same as the grey one. It's the red bits on the side that are a bolt-on extra. They're like a side plate that's the same thickness as the rest of the lift, and they bolt on the side with big 10mm threads all the way down, and they make the table overall just over 4 foot wide. So what's the reason for that? Why did I need a 4 foot wide table for a motorcycle? Now, as you know, I work here alone, mechanically. I don't have any other mechanics here to help me. I have Penny Pit Stop doing the filming for the videos, but she's not about to start mauling motorcycles about. That's on me. It's for me to get the bikes up onto the lift safely for the bike itself and for me without hurting myself. And a bike like that, something that weighs like 250 kilos or less, piece of cake. You just stand beside them with the engine in gear, let the clutch out gradually and wheel them up onto the lift. Piece of cake, do it every day, no problem. But on the big super heavyweight bikes that I've dealt with in the past, the Goldwing, the Street Glide, my mate's Electric Glide and other stuff like that, that is a whole different matter and can be a very dangerous business indeed. And simply the safest way to get a full-size touring motorcycle up onto a lift is not to push it from one side like regular bikes, but it's to sit on it and literally ride it up the ramp in safety. Imagine the width of these motorcycles, things like a Goldwing, an Electric Glide, a Rocket 3 Touring, or a fully loaded BMW GS. These bikes are nearly 3 feet wide, and when you're sitting on them and you've ridden it up the ramp, your feet are almost 3 feet apart. So where does that put them? About there, almost off the edge of the lift, and I found that almost immediately. Riding these great big bikes up onto my lift, it was terrifying because your feet are almost in the air next to the lift. You can't get your feet underneath enough to stand on the lift safely, and also when you get off that massive bike that weighs nearly 400 kilos, you really want to put it on the side stand. So that is where these 10-inch side plates come in handy. They're proper strong, they're as strong as the lift itself, they've got the same load capacity. You ride it up and you just paddle it up with your feet beside you as normal, about that width apart. And when you've got it up on the lift in the clamp at the front, you kick the side stand out, which rests about here, you drop it on the side stand and you're safe. So there's my justification for having a wide lift, because I work on wide bikes from time to time, and it's not just a convenient thing, but also it's a safety consideration. So if you have a wide bike and you work on your own, you might also want to buy some side plates for your lift, and I'll leave links to all this equipment in the description below. Just as a demonstration, a little skinny Sportster, and look how the stand is off the edge of what would have been the bare lift and it's onto the side plate. So you can just wheel it up and park it. Imagine a super wide fat bike like a Goldwing. You just ride it up, kick the stand out and park it. It's all about being safe when you work on your own. Now there's a couple of reasons why some people completely discount the idea of getting a lift. One might be that you've got no footprint for it in your garage. Your garage is full of bikes. You've got nowhere to actually put it. Well, what about parking a bike on your lift? A friend of mine does that. He's got 4 or 5 bikes and a lift at the same time. And one of the bikes permanently lives on the lift when it's not in use. If it's not a daily user, it's not too difficult, is it? Lift the ramp up, put it out the way, and you can get all around the bike as if it was parked on the floor. No problem at all. Also, some of these lifts you can get, they're collapsible. There are some products out there that literally, when they're not in use, they drop right down and they stand up against the wall, hooked out the way safely, so you've got your floor back. There's always an option if you really want one. Anyway, I want to end the video, if I can, on a word about safety, the safe use of a motorcycle lift. 6 years ago, we posted a video 24 minutes long on the safe use of a motorcycle lift. It's an in-depth review. So rather than talk about safety now, I'll leave a link to that video here on the screen if you want to watch that one after this one. And also, I'll leave a range of links below if you want to think about treating yourself to your first lift. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.